So we're now
I mean,
live,
I don't
Sol?
know what, huh?
We're now live on YouTube?
It's setting it up. It's
Okay.
connecting the stream.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Excellent. Yeah, I haven't heard from Elaine or Becky in the last couple of days, but presumably it went out to all their students. I have no idea. They haven't given me an estimate of how many they thought would actually attend though.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if not, we can send them the link of this video afterwards.
Yeah. And we'll monitor YouTube as well in case there are people watching there who have questions.
Cool.
Let me pull it up now.
Yeah, everyone's coming in.
Hey, Erica, Eduardo, Sam, Pablo.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Great. Pablo, I thought you weren't going to be here today.
You missed my beautiful presentation yesterday, Pablo.
Maybe he's not.
Yeah, I didn't even know this was happening until now. So I had some time, so I thought I might as well drop by.
Perfect.
I thought we were friends, Pablo.
What did I miss? Your presentation?
Yes.
Is there a way I could find it elsewhere saved, or was it a one-time
No.
thing?
Never.
Unfortunate.
You guys can do it again if you want, Sam.
It's a one-time thing, and he threw away his chance.
All right. There's Angelina. Hi, Angelina. Amanda. Starting to roll in now. Jonathan, how's it going?
Do you want me to give it a second, or should I just dive in?
Yeah, let's give them another minute or two for people. Again, it's
Okay.
usually people roll in right now.
Okay.
Especially since I don't see anyone from outside of our program. Let me see. Solomon, is there a link for this on YouTube?
Yeah, here, I can put it in the chat real quick.
Oh, wait. Yeah, Becky is emailing saying trouble signing in. She sent it to you, Solomon, too. Oh, actually, I can do this. I'll respond with the link.
Okay.
I thought this
Do
might
you want
be.
the Zoom link or the YouTube link?
Well, I'm just going to give them the Zoom link. I wanted them to be actually in here to ask questions.
Okay.
So we'll give them a minute.
We should put ads on the video.
Put ads on the video.
Yeah.
What would we advertise?
Like you use like AdSense. It's like put ads on the YouTube video.
What would be an appropriate product?
Not sure. YouTube just chooses random things.
That's right.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah, most of the times, like, the stuff that they advertise isn't even like family friendly. It's just whoever can pay the most money.
Okay, looks like we have some people joining.
All right. Okay, here come a few people. So Davin, why don't we get started just out of the interest of time, in case people have questions and everyone can join in later. So everyone, welcome. I'm really happy that we have Davin Sweeney here to talk to you guys about how to navigate the college application system. So this is not someone from Pitt like we had before who are simultaneously trying to recruit you. Davin will give you the honest take, I think, on best practices for navigating the college application system, especially now that things are changing in the time of COVID. So please feel free, as always, to ask questions. I see we have a couple, Nicola and Arena. I apologize, I mispronounced your name. Also, feel free to unmute, ask questions at any time, or ask questions in the chat, and we'll monitor those and get to Davin as well. But please, everyone, ask him lots of questions. He has lots of knowledge. So Davin, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks. That was very generous. Yeah, I will say, I promise that, you know, I have no reason other than to be brutally honest with you guys about this stuff. And I will say that, you know, while the admissions counselors like those at Pitt that you might have heard from may have an ulterior motive to, you know, attract you to come to their college, like everybody in admissions is generally about as forthright as they really can be. You know, they try really, really hard to make sure, I think, that they're not just salespeople, right? Slanging a product, but that instead they are helping you understand how the entire process and system works. So I think that the insight that you get from individual admissions counselors is really good, but obviously it's to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt, and to understand that the information that you get from individual admissions counselors is really sort of seen through the prism of their individual kind of school. But a lot of these people have worked at a lot of different kinds of places and can bring a lot of experience and insights with them. I am going to go ahead and share my screen, which means I won't be able to see if anybody else is coming in. So if somebody else can admit those that are showing up, that would be great. So let me just dig in here. I am going to need to bounce right at about 3:15, but I really want to encourage you guys now and into the future to please reach out. I'll share there's my email address right there. So if you guys have any follow-up questions for me when this is over, then please make sure that you are able to, you know, that you reach out and you ask me anything that's on your mind. As we go along, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat box, and Dr. Boone and potentially some others will be taking a look at that and see if there's something that I should answer right away. If not, I'll make sure that I leave a little time at the end to go over the questions that came up, okay? So first off, I really am not the best at coming up with like presentation titles, so this is really boring. but this is really actually what I'm going to talk about. So apologies if it's not a more exciting title. But I am a college counselor. I'll tell you a little bit more about who I am. I went to college myself at the University of Southern California. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and it was extremely rainy there. And so I was really tired of being in a rainy place. And so I wanted to go to Southern California. I got very lucky to get admitted there. And I should say that, you know, this is back when nobody would feel compelled to try to pay a bribe to go to a place like USC, for crying out loud. So I went to graduate school at NYU. I live in New York City right now. At the moment, I live in the Bronx. And I come to you and to bring a lot of this so-called wisdom that Dr. Boone mentioned earlier, based on my experience in college admissions at a place called the University of Rochester. Their logo does not have their name on it. It has this Latin phrase that means ever better, apparently. And I worked there for about 10 years reading admissions, reading applications for admissions. So I've read thousands and thousands of applications and essays and all of that stuff. So I know a lot about how the sausage is made behind the scenes, as they say. I'm also just kind of a nerd about this stuff. I really like it. I'm really interested in it. So I have a podcast of my own if you want to check it out. It's available on iTunes and Spotify and stuff. It's called The Crush. I used to work up until recently at a college counseling company that worked one-on-one with families and students, helping them with the college admissions process called CollegeWise. And it was there that I met the fine folks at Pitt, and I've been helping them with a bigger project and doing a little bit of consulting with them to help understand sort of how admissions works overall and how it's working these days, given the realities of the coronavirus and stuff, right? Because a lot has shifted. A lot hasn't, but so I'll talk about the basics of applying to four-year colleges. So I want to make that clear, right? Two-year colleges and community colleges, that's college. That is absolutely college. But it is a very, very different process, and one that is much easier to get into considerably than, you know, four-year colleges. There really is a difference, okay? I want to talk about how to figure out where you want to apply, what colleges look for, and what the parts of the application are, and what you need to do to actually apply, what kind of a timeline maybe you should follow. And then I'll give you guys some tools that you can use to stay organized. So I'll give you a literal digital tool that you can use, you know, a spreadsheet to make a copy of yourself and use to kind of organize yourself. And then I want to finish off by you know, touching on this concept of self-advocacy or artful bragging. You know, a lot of people, some people don't have a problem bragging about themselves, and we don't tend to like those people, right? But this is unfortunately a little uncomfortable, but this is a big part of what you have to do when you're applying to college. Is you do have to brag about yourself a little bit. So you're gonna have to find a little bit of comfort in doing that. So let's start off and talk about where should you apply. Really 8 to 12 total schools. This is the sort of a magic number. It can be a little bit less. It can maybe even be a little bit more. But the thing is that each individual school may have its own application process, and the more schools you have on your list, the harder it can be to give every single one of those schools the full attention that it deserves. If you have too few schools, then maybe you're not giving yourself a big enough menu of options and possibilities. If you only apply to 4 schools, there's a greater chance that you don't get into any of them, right? So what we want to do is make sure that you're applying to a good number of schools that are going to give you the best possible range of options, and hopefully the majority of them are going to give you good news too, right? Because we want to diversify the risk. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit too, but you want a few schools that are reach schools. Like, you know, I don't know if I'm going to get into that school, but that'd be cool if I could. The majority of the schools on your list, there should be schools where you feel really comfortable, like, okay, I should get into this school, and then just in case I don't get into these target schools, I've got some backups that I have really, really strong feeling that this should work in my favor, right? Highly ranked schools doesn't mean that they're good. This is a whole presentation for another day that I'd be happy to return to if you guys wanted to. But just because a school is famous or it's ranked in the top 25 of the U.S. News and World Report or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good school. It doesn't mean that it's a good school for you. I majored in film studies and Spanish, right? Like I'm really not very good at math. Carnegie Mellon University, really good school, right? By a lot of measures, very highly ranked. I had no business going to a place like Carnegie Mellon, right? MIT, very good school. I had no business going to a place like MIT, right? So there are good schools that should be considered sort of relative to their fit with you and what you need, right? So I'm going to talk about what you guys might want to think about when you think about what is a school that's a good fit, so that you can come up with a list of schools that are going to be a good fit. There's an academic fit, right? They have my major, but maybe also, there's a little bit of flexibility. I don't have to, take any classes that I don't want to take. I'm going to be able to play around and to sort of take my time to figure out what I'm going to major in if you're undecided, which is totally okay if you're undecided, completely fine. But there's also stuff like the social fit, right? You want a very, very small school. There are some schools, I was looking today, there's a school called Whittier College in California that has 1,200 total students, undergrad and grad. That's teeny tiny, and then you've got much larger schools like the sort that you're familiar with, maybe at the University of Pittsburgh or Ohio State or Penn State or places like this, right, that are massive, massive schools, and then a lot of stuff in between. So the size really makes a difference for a lot of students about what's, going to make you feel comfortable. What's the diversity of the student body like? What kinds of clubs and what's, what are the things that happen outside the classroom? Because the overwhelming majority of the time that you're going to spend in college is going to be spent outside of the classroom doing unstructured sort of social things. So this is an important thing to think about. Of course, you also want to think about a financial fit, right? Because not every school charges the same amount of money. Not every school is going to give you the same amount of financial aid. So you do want to make sure that you're thinking about this as well. I'll give you some tips to think about this. But one way to start when you're starting to think about where should you apply, come up with a list of 5 to 7 priorities of things that are really important to you, and there are some program advisors, in these programs that could help you, be happy to help you think about maybe what these are. But here's some examples, right? Like maybe you're interested in computer science. They just have to have a computer science major. But maybe you want to go a little deeper than that. Maybe they don't just want a computer science major, but they have a really strong concentration in like artificial intelligence or, something like that, right? So think about what your academic priority might be. Maybe it's got to be close to home, right? And then you want to think about, well, what's close? A plane ride away, a couple hours driving, whatever. But, the distance from home, I think, can be a great place to start when you start thinking about building a list of schools. Because if the whole country is available to you, well, that's going to increase the options. If maybe only schools within a certain, driving range of home are available to you, then that is going to help bring your list down into a reasonable size as well. Maybe you don't want more than 5,000 undergraduates. Maybe, you really don't want to spend this much per year. It's got to have an active National Society of Black Engineers chapter, for instance. Maybe that's something that's important to you. They should, likely to admit me might be a priority. And maybe they have they're a school that has a test optional admissions policy. So right here with a list like this, these 7 priorities, there are only so many schools in the country or within, the number 2 there, close to home radius, that are going to meet all of these criteria. So that's going to take this list of 4,000 possible options down to, 30 or 40, right? And then that's going to give you a sense of what's available to you. So it's all about taking big, huge numbers of schools and then reducing it down to a list of 8 or 12, right?
Hey, Davin, we have one question, and maybe we can touch on this before moving on. So can you explain a little bit about how colleges are ranked. So Jonathan asked, if a school is highly ranked in your prospective major, does that indicate how good they are at teaching that prospective major?
I'm glad you asked that. I left this other presentation up that I gave at another place to help give you a sense of why these schools might be highly ranked. Okay, so this methodology is available on their website. If you want to go and look and see what the U.S. News and World Report rankings actually measure, this is the breakdown. Okay, so when you think about, look at the number one thing that they weigh in their rankings is graduation and retention rate. So if a student graduates in 4 years, and if the school graduates the majority of their students in 4 years, well, you'd say to yourself, yes, that's important. They should graduate their students within 4 years because that's the expectation. Beyond 4 years means you're spending more time and money to complete your degree, that kind of thing, right? Retention means the number of students who start in their first year that then return for a second year. Now, think a little bit more about this particular statistic. There are certain types of students who are more likely to return in their second year, and there are students who are more likely to graduate in 4 years. And this measurement correlates very strongly with the fact that maybe the student's parents both went to college. That the student went to a fancy high school that gave them lots of college prep coursework to make sure that they'd be successful when they get to college. So it correlates very strongly with wealth, okay? It's a little bit, when you look at some of this other stuff, okay, standardized tests, you see that? 8%. This is where you, this is why you have to take SATs and ACTs, is because this is a huge chunk of the ranking, right? Well, doesn't that correlate with household wealth as well, right? So there's a lot of this stuff in here that correlates very strongly with household wealth. And so when you think about it, highly ranked colleges are really just the schools that tend to enroll the wealthiest students. Okay, so now we can bring the GIF up. This is really what these rankings measure. Okay, if you want to look at a different kind of a ranking, you can go to let's see, you can go to the socialmobilityindex.org. Okay, so this is a ranking that looks at colleges and universities that improve students' socioeconomic standing, right? So maybe they enroll students at a lower socioeconomic class and then catapult them on to a higher degree of socioeconomic success. So this is actually the college here in New York City where my wife teaches, ranked #1. You can come down here and you can look at, let's look in your state and see the schools that are most successful at doing this in your state. East Stroudsburg University, Cal University of Pennsylvania, so on and so forth. So you're not seeing, Carnegie Mellon University on this list, probably because they already take students who are socioeconomically well off, right? There's not a lot of room for them to go at the top anymore, right? So there's a whole other presentation there that I'd be happy to go into, but that's basically what they go into. It doesn't really say this school is better at teaching you how to learn stuff than other schools, right? I think that's really, really hard to do. I think it's impossible to do. So they have to find some other kinds of proxies for that unfortunately are very problematic, okay? So let's talk about reach, target, and safety schools, okay? The idea here is that you want to diversify the risk. You don't just want to aim for a bunch of schools and hope one of them takes you because they're all reach schools, okay? There's a lot that factors into whether a school is a reach, target, or safety school, but here's the basic way to think about it, okay? If you're below the average admitted student profile, or it's a school with an admit rate below 20%, it's generally a reach school, Okay, and the admitted student profile would be, average GPA is a 3.8, average ACT score is a 31. If you're a 3.5 and a 27, maybe it's a reach school, right? But if you're a 3.8 and a 29, maybe you're right there, right? If you're a 4.0 and a 33, maybe it's more of a likely school. Now, this is not perfect, right? But this is just kind of a basic way to think about whether a school might be a reach target or a likely school. So I will say that this part here where I talk about the admit rate being below 20%, those schools are just difficult to get into for everybody. So it's the smartest way to think about it that, a school with an admit rate below 20%, it's generally just going to be a bit of a coin toss no matter who you are, okay? Colleges always do everything they can to look hard to get into. So you're going to look at some schools and they're going to say, well, our admitted, our average GPA is a 4.6. And I'm like, well, how does that make any sense? They're going to do everything they can to look as hard as they can to get into, because it makes them look coveted, it makes them look special and shiny, and it makes people want to apply. Oh, it must be good if it's hard to get into, right? That's what everybody thinks. Calculate your GPA if you don't know it. I'll share these slides with you so that you can look at this tool to calculate your GPA, accounting for pluses and minuses and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you're in a school where it's a 100-point scale and you need to come up with a 4.0 scale. College Board's got a great conversion tool. And then when you're thinking about test scores, they're going to report their average test scores within a middle 50% range. So it's never going to be our average test score is this. Our average test score is a range of this to this. So if I say our average ACT score is between a 27 and a 30, that means that 25% of students have above a 30 and 25% of students have below a 27. Right? So you could be in the lower 25% of there, right? But this is sort of how schools are going to report it out. Check with your school counselor. I hope you have a good relationship with your school counselor. If not, it'd be a good one to develop, because understanding the context of your school environment is very important in understanding your chances of admission at colleges. So they're going to say, in the history of our school, we've had this many students apply and get admitted to this place. They may have that information that'll help you understand a little bit more about your chances. If you go to a school that has something like Naviance, for instance, that's another tool that can help understand reach target and likely status, okay? Reach target and safety also depends a lot on the major that you're applying to. So for instance, if you're applying to like an engineering major, that's a very, very engineering, computer science, business, these are really popular programs. So the school might say our admit rate is 30%, when in reality for students that are applying to their computer science program, maybe it's more like 15%, right? They don't tend to publish, but these are questions you can ask admissions counselors when you get to that point. Test optional colleges. You guys might have noticed that just about every school in the country now has decided to make their testing policy optional, which means you can or cannot submit your SAT or your ACT scores as a component of applying for college, where previously tons of these schools would have said, sorry, but you cannot apply to our college unless you have an SAT score to share. If you want to see the list of the schools that are test optional, this is the website, fairtest.org, okay? And I think there are always a lot of questions about, well, I have test scores. When should I submit them and when shouldn't I submit them? So again, a good general sort of rule of thumb and way to think about it, again, not ironclad, but way to think about it is if you have test scores, you should submit them. But if you have them and they are within or above the college's mid 50% range, Okay, that's when you want to submit those test scores. When you should maybe not submit test scores is like if you don't have them. Many of you maybe haven't even had a chance to take the SAT or the ACT because they've all been canceled because of coronavirus stuff, right? So if you don't have them, you just don't have them. And that's why so many new colleges have chosen to go with this test optional policy, because they realize there's going to be thousands and thousands of students that just don't even have test scores to submit. If you guys don't have test scores at this point, I would think that it's probably not a great use of your time to try to find a way to take an SAT or an ACT, because so many schools are test optional. So it's my recommendation that there are a lot of other things that are a considerably better use of your time than studying for these tests. Okay, so if you're in the middle of studying for an SAT or an ACT, you've got my totally unqualified permission to quit. Okay, we can talk about that more if you want to. But maybe when you don't submit test scores, is if you have them, but they're below the college's mid 50% range, right? I mean, if I were you, I would just say, I mean, I don't have it. Sorry, I never got the chance to take it. And then all of these colleges will say, great, that's why we now have a test optional admissions policy for students like you. More on where should you apply. Tools to aid your search. You guys have a College Board account, arguably, if you took the SAT. If not, you don't even really need one, but it helps for this tool. This is a great tool where you can take those priorities that I showed you before and you can plug them in. You can say, show me schools that are this size within this many miles of my zip code that have this major and so on and so forth. It's a really, really good tool to help narrow down that huge menu of options into something a little bit more reasonable. collegedata.com is a really good website, especially on the money stuff. So if you want to see how much money they tend to give students, this is a good website to use. Sign up for a free account though, because otherwise they'll keep spamming you with pop-up ads telling you to sign up for a free account. So just sign up for a free account. uvisit.com is where you can do virtual college tours, okay? There aren't many opportunities right now to go and do an actual college tour, but if you want to see as best you can what a place looks like, then this is a good opportunity to do it virtually. However, any of the schools that you're interested in at all, obviously their website, you want to make sure that you sign up for their email list, get on their email list. Just, usually Google name of school email list, but you should find it very easy to sign up for it. But they have information sessions, right? So if you were going to go and do a campus tour traditionally, usually they'll have these information sessions beforehand where they'll get up and they'll tell you everything that's fantastic about the school, and then you'll go on the tour. But they're still doing those information sessions, but they're online. So definitely register for and attend virtual information sessions, okay? They're kind of taking attendance at these things, right? So if you go to this, it's going to show up on their end of the screen when your application pops up. Oh, here's a student that came to our information session. And if you have all equal parts to another student who didn't show up to a virtual information session, you look a little bit stronger. So definitely register for these things, but also attend them. Don't just register and then ghost, because they'll notice that too. Okay, so if you register for these, you have to go. I put this 3 times because it's very important. Because all you need is an hour and an internet connection, and you can do it. Okay, do this, very important. And take good notes. Take really, really good notes about the things that you hear that stand out to you about the school. And keep those notes, because they're going to become handy to you later when the college asks you in their supplemental essay in the application. They ask you, why do you want to apply to this school? Then you can say, well, I attended the info session and I heard this and I heard this, and I think that makes a lot of sense to me, right? So on the matter of defining a financial fit, there's some things that you can do. So if you can, have a conversation as a family about what's affordable. And then you also have to keep all 4 years in mind, okay? Because a lot of the time you might be like, well, we can do this much this year, and then let's see what happens down the road. That can be difficult. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about all 4 years. Use online resources like net price calculators to help. Okay, so every school is required to have these things called net price calculators. And their job is, the net price calculator is basically an online tool where you plug in some details about your, anonymously, totally anonymously, about your family's financial condition. And it will return to you a conservative estimate of what you could be eligible to receive from this school in terms of need-based financial aid. So not merit scholarships, but need-based financial aid. But this is a really, really helpful tool to get a ballpark sense of what the school might end up charging you to attend, okay? If you apply to schools that are more likely to accept you, that is to say, target safety schools, they're gonna like you so much that they might want to give you merit scholarship money. So when it comes to scholarships, it's my experience that the majority of the support that you're gonna get in terms of scholarships is usually gonna come from the college itself. Outside scholarships are a little difficult to come by in amounts that are terribly meaningful. But if you apply to more schools that are likely to accept you, then they're also going to try to make it as easy as possible for you to come. Consider schools willing to meet full demonstrated need. Okay, these tend to be higher selective, wealthier schools that have a lot of money to support students for financial aid. But if you Google schools that meet full demonstrated need, you'll come up with a long list. But you just really want to make sure that you have a strong sense of what a school is going to be able to give you to help you attend. You want to consider other kinds of costs like transportation between home and campus. So, are you able to afford also a couple of round trip plane tickets to Miami if you're going to go to the University of Miami, right? Is that another thing that you're going to need to factor in? If you have financial need, early decision can be complicated. So early decision, for those of you guys that aren't familiar, is a binding arrangement that says you sign a contract with your school counselor and your parent that says, if I am accepted to your school under the terms of this arrangement, I will definitely enroll. The thing is that if they accept you, you not only have to take their offer of admission, but you also have to take whatever amount of financial support they do or don't give you, right? So early decision can be nice in a lot of ways, but it can be difficult if you're a little bit worried about finances, okay? So what do colleges look for when they open up your application? The number one thing, the most important thing is grades, okay? And it's not just GPA. GPA is like the tip of the iceberg. They want to see everything underneath the GPA, which is to say, what classes did you take? How rigorous were they, right? So did you have some advanced placement coursework or something like that available to you in your high school? And if so, how did you choose to challenge yourself, and did you meet those challenges with good grades over time, right? So the grade trend is really important. Look, a lot of us struggle in ninth grade. I definitely did. I had to go to summer school for math after ninth grade. And then I realized that if I wanted to stay living in my parents' house and eating their food, I would not do that again, right? And so your grades slowly improve. And that's the idea, right? Is they want to see is that if you get into 11th and 12th grades, which is when you start to approach the college experience, that your grades are at their best. So they don't need to be nice and high necessarily throughout. That's ideal, but they definitely want to be going up, right? 11th grade is a really important year because it's the last complete year that colleges have to look at your grades. They will look at the 12th grade grades when they come out, but 11th is really important. You want to see those grades going up as much as possible. They do look at test scores, maybe, right? If they have them, we went over that. Writing, of course. So there's your personal statement, the standard kind of college essay that you've all heard about. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but this might be another session that I'd be happy to do because this is one that students usually have tons of, rightfully so, have tons of questions about. There's also supplemental essays, right? So where colleges say, okay, we read this essay, you're sending that essay to everybody, but what about us? Why are you applying to our school? So these supplemental essays are going to be very, very different from school to school. Some of them are going to be straightforward. Some of them are going to be not very straightforward at all, but these are very important, almost in some cases more important than the personal statement. So you want to make sure that you're tackling these supplemental essays as strongly as you can. There's also this additional information section, which is if there's anything you want to tell us about anything, put it here. So it's usually there might be some students that had a very complicated personal matter that impacted their grades. So remember, we're talking about this grade trend, right? That maybe in 10th grade, you know, their parents went through a divorce or something like that, and that really impacted their grades. And maybe you want to explain that. Maybe you're doing research and there's nowhere else to put information about your research project. You want to put it here. Anything you want, you can put in the additional information section. It's not critical. It's totally up to you, but it's another place where you can self-advocate if you need to and give a little bit more information about who you are. And then there's the extracurricular activities section, okay? So you have a list that you can put up to 10 activities, and you have only 150 characters to describe these activities. So it's useful for you to list your activities on a separate document so that you can draft these things in 150 characters, because it's really not a lot, and make them sound as great as you can. They will have to go in order of their preference to you. So the one you like the most goes at the top, second most, third most, and so on. Everything outside the classroom counts as an extracurricular activity. Do you care for a younger sibling, or do you care maybe even for a grandmother, grandfather? Do you have a part-time job? Do you play video games? Have you read, every Harry Potter book in the series 10 times? Like, everything outside the classroom counts. It's totally okay. It doesn't need to just be clubs and sports and stuff. Okay, so everything counts. Recommendations, right? So most of the time, it's definitely going to be your school counselor, and it's going to be 2 teachers. But maybe you want Dr. Bloom to write one for you. That's certainly within the realm of possibility. You just want to make sure that you check with the school and make sure that they say, please, absolutely do not send us any other recommendations other than your school counselor and 2 teachers. Because if that's the case, then it might be a waste of Dr. Bloom's time. But a lot of schools, the majority of schools, are happy to hear from recommenders that know you in whatever context. I'll talk a little bit more about recommendations in a minute. They also look at other stuff, maybe. They don't all look at portfolios, but some of you guys might be applying to some design or engineering programs or something like this, where they want to see portfolios. And then, of course, there's stuff like an admissions interview, okay? You should absolutely do admissions interviews if they offer them. Absolutely, absolutely, always, no matter what. Not all schools do offer them, but if they do, you should, because you want to do everything that they give you the opportunity to do. If they say it's optional, pretend it's required, except for test optional. That really is optional. Everything else where they say optional interview or optional supplemental essay, do it, do it, do it, do it, okay? Because you want to be able to demonstrate as much interest as you can in the school, take them up on their offer to do that, okay?
Can I ask a really quick question?
Yeah.
Interviews, what if it's non-evaluative?
Do it, because there's still going to be a bunch of students that don't take them up on it, and if they get into a position where they're having to split hairs between these students and those students, they're probably going to take the students that demonstrated a little bit more interest, took a little bit more time to do it, regardless of whether it's evaluative or informative. There's really no downside risk, right, to just doing it. Take them up on every offer to engage with them as you can. Okay, good question. So what do you actually need to do to apply? So once you have your list of 8-12 schools, research their admissions requirements. Make sure you've got everything that they need, okay? So for instance, the University of Richmond in Virginia requires that students take 4 years of a foreign language. It's a hard requirement. If you've not taken 4 years of a foreign language in high school, you cannot apply to the University of Richmond, okay? So there really are some things like this. They're rare, but there are some, and you don't want to waste your time. But if you just Google name of school and admissions requirements, right, you ought to be taken to that page. But their admissions website should be very forthright about all of this stuff. Create an account at commonapp.org. We'll walk through this very, very briefly in a moment, but it's officially open on August 1st. But you can begin to fill this out now. It will roll over to August 1st, except if you add school-specific information. So I'll show you what I mean by that. But you're supposed to be able to add individual schools that you want to apply to through the Common App on their platform. That stuff will reset on August 1st. But the main Common App, like the stuff that goes to every single school, the stuff where you're listing your activities, your courses that you're taking in 12th grade, like all of that stuff that you can fill out now will roll over. So I'll show you what I mean though in a second, but there's no reason to wait. You can just go ahead and fill out a big chunk of this common application while you're like watching TV. Keep track of deadlines and requirements, okay? And a good rule of thumb, like if I want you guys to be as competitive as possible in this process, even though the deadline, the application deadline say January 1st, that is almost too late, okay? Apply by the earliest non-binding date possible. This is early actions. This is different from early decision. Early decision is binding, right? It gotta go. But early action is simply an arrangement where if you apply early, they notify you early. But this is one more demonstration of interest. Wow, look at this kid. They've really got their stuff together and they applied by November 1st. They applied early. Let me tell you another thing. As an admissions counselor, I was always most excited to read applications at the beginning of the process. These are humans, right, that read these applications. Humans get fatigued. And in November, December, January, and February, you're reading applications, right? So if you apply by January 1st, and I'm starting to look at your application in the middle of January, maybe I'm a little less enthusiastic about it than I am in November. So just go ahead and get it in, get it in, get it in. You've got no reason not to, right? Items listed as optional are required except tests. That's what I'm saying to you guys, right? The optional interview, the optional essays, just do them, okay? So let's take a look at the Common App. I just want to show you guys really quickly kind of what this looks like, okay? So the Common Application right here, by the way, grown-ups or students, folks that work with students, you can create a profile as I did here as a practice applicant, okay? You should be prompted to do that pretty easily if you want to. But you'll see here, the Common Application is just these sections here. Profile, so just your basic name, who are you, all of this stuff, when are you going to graduate. Common App fee waiver. So this may be something that applies to you guys, okay? Our member colleges want to make sure that application fees don't pose a barrier for any student who wishes to apply for admission. Do you feel that your financial circumstances might qualify you for an application fee waiver? If you say yes, you've got some options here, right? So if you're on free and reduced lunch at school, you can click that and sign your name, and then they're not going to ask you to pay for your application when you submit, okay? And that'll save you a ton of money. You want to try to do as much of this stuff for free as you possibly can. There's no reason to pay for all this stuff if you don't have to, okay? Education testing, here's the activities section that I was talking about, right? So you want to go ahead and put your, do you have any activities that you wish to report? Yes, right? Activity type, man, I am in varsity badminton. I am a head badminter. Okay, and then as you can see here, you have 150 characters and it runs out. So like you can't see at the end, like when you've hit it doesn't have the little thing where you can grab the corner and expand the box, which drives me crazy. So this is why you want to draft these things on a separate document. Make sure you've hit that 150 character limit and then drop it in here, okay? Grade levels, I participated in 9th and 10th grade, but then I was overthrown by a new head badminter and I changed in 11th and 12th grade to a different sport. That's okay. You're not supposed to be able to do these things all 4 years. If you want to keep going in college, if you want to try again in college, then you can click postgraduate, right? They want to know how long you did it, both in hours per week and weeks per year. Okay.
Can I ask a question about the grade levels? So if it's during,
Yeah.
like, if it's during the summer, like if you select school break, which grade level would you choose? The previous grade level or the next one?
So I would so if you're going to be, let's say it's this summer and you're starting something, I would click 12, right? If you're starting something in the summer after 8th grade and before 9th, I would click 9th, right? Again, this is all about high school. They're not necessarily asking you for information about what you've done before that. However, one of the things you can say is, I have been badmintoning since I was in 6th grade. You know what I mean? To give a little context, understand that this is something that you've been doing for a very long time or whatever. Okay. I'm going to move on just for a second. Here's the writing section, so you can look and see what the Common Application essay prompts are if you want. They are going to be the same next year. They're all right here, so you can read these over. Maybe they will help you get an idea for what you want to write about. But when you add colleges, this is the part you're not necessarily going to do before August 1st because it'll all reset. But let's say you want to add my old admissions office here, the University of Rochester. It's right there. So I click the little button and it has now been added to my colleges list, my colleges tab right here. So you can see I've got 2 schools. On August 1st, if I leave this the same, those will not be there. I say again, okay, you can do this just for your own edification, but if you want to understand a little bit about maybe what you might be up against when you're applying to the University of Rochester, this is what it's going to look like. You can see that they have last year's deadlines here. This is why they reset, okay? So here's all of the basic information about applying. The requirements are, the writing requirements are right here, okay? So writing supplement right here, okay? This is what I mean when I talk about supplemental essays. So you hit questions, and here they are. These are all going to be very different depending on the school, but I want to write an essay response, write an analytical or creative response of 250 words or less that responds to this prompt. Okay, so that's the thing you would have to do for Rochester. So maybe you just want to kind of get an idea of what they're going to ask you. You can add these schools in now, but again, they will go away. Okay, and then when you come over here to dashboard, they're going to have your schools here, and they're going to give you sort of a high level look at what needs to be done. So the application still needs to be done. The writing supplement still needs, right? There's a lot more here, but I just wanted to give you guys a very basic overview of what to look at. Okay.
Davin, how do you feel about addressing a few questions that we've had in the chat?
Sure.
The first one I'll ask, it's really straightforward, so I think it'll be quick. Alexandria asked, so the Common App writing questions are the same for 2021 and 2022?
Correctamundo. The prompts are the same. So these things that you see here in the personal essay, they will not change. Right?
Okay.
These prompts are the same. They've been that way for a few years, including this one at the end that just says, you know, if none of these work, then share an essay on any topic of your choice.
Excellent.
Okay? Now, that's not an essay from school or something. This is not your Great Gatsby paper that you got an A on, right? This is a personal statement for college, not an academic paper. Okay.
Okay. Along the application lines, Angelina asked, so the application for 2021 is starting on August 1st. So that means that she can start applying through the Common App on August 1st?
That you can start filling all of this stuff out right now. So this tab right here, the Common App tab, will roll over, okay? Now you're gonna get into some sections here where they're gonna ask you to speak in the present tense about stuff, like this one here. Current or most recent year courses. They don't mean the ones you just did. They mean the ones you're gonna do in 12th grade because they're assuming that you're applying as a 12th grader, right? So if there's some of this stuff that maybe you don't know what you're taking next year. If that's the case, leave it blank until you do know. But fill out as much of this as you can right now, because there's really no reason not to. You're okay to do that. Now, as far as these, the colleges stuff, while this will reset on August 1st, a lot of these colleges have already made their essays for next year available. If you want to get started and you can't wait a couple of weeks until August 1st, number one, I applaud you. Very smart. Good. Number two, you can reach out to their admissions office or look at the website and see if they've posted the 2021 essay prompts, in which case then you've got the information and you can get started writing.
All right, along the essay questions, we have 2 more on essays. How many essays should they have prepared?
So you really only need to draft 1 essay, right? Your personal statement. I think I'd like to talk to you about doing another session specifically about writing, because it tends to, it's complicated. There's a lot in there, and I think I can be helpful. So let's see if we can do this again for that.
Yeah, that sounds good. And so maybe I'll postpone Julian. You just asked a question about some good essay topics, but maybe we'll push it to that session as well.
Yeah, I have a lot to say on that, but I have more to say on the rest of this stuff, and I want to be sensitive to time. So let me talk about something that's new this year. Okay, the Common Application has a new prompt this year that you guys have the option to complete relative to COVID-19. Community disruptions and natural disasters can have deep and long-lasting impacts. I'm highlighting these on purpose, these things, these red things, okay? These are the key words. If you need it, this space is yours to describe those impacts. Colleges care about the effects on your health and your well-being, safety, family circumstances, future plans, education, including access to reliable technology and quiet study spaces. I know a lot of people here in my borough of the Bronx share a 2-bedroom apartment with a whole lot of family members, and maybe they couldn't find a really quiet place to study for their AP exam or something like that, right? If this sounds like you, then you have 650 words to talk about how this pandemic really made your life difficult and made it harder for you to get your academic work done. So this is available to you to talk about, okay, if you want. All right, why did I do that? Okay, here we go. Now, let me burn through some of this stuff here a little quicker. And again, I will share all of this stuff with you. So this timeline for success, this is like now going forward if you're a senior, okay? So you've got the month of August ahead of you, right? Common Application opens August 1st. Right now, if you want, please, we'll do this. We can do this in a couple of weeks if you want. Talk about the essay stuff. But if you brainstorm possible essay topics, write a first draft. Just get a first draft out of the way. You can narrow down your list of schools. You can do this research now and figure out where those 8 and 12 schools are where you might apply. Again, right? Attend the info sessions. Identify the supplemental essay questions, right? Organize all of those onto a piece of paper or rather a Google Doc and keep those all centrally located and start to chip away at those supplemental essay questions, right? Reach out to colleges that you're interested in, especially if they offer interviews. This goes with this self-advocacy piece that I'm going to get into, okay? September, school starts. Ask for teacher recommendations if you haven't yet. I can tell you guys that fall of your senior year is bananas in any year. And this year it's going to be its own special brand of bananas, right? So what I think makes the most sense for you guys to do is to try to get as much work for college done as you can before school starts. I know it's tough. I know it sucks. And it's probably the last thing you want to do for summer, but it's going to make your life easier. The more of this stuff you can get done before school starts. Balancing this with school is really, really tough. If you can't, then you can't. But I want to make that encouragement if I can. So engage with admissions officers however you can. In the fall, I don't know what's going to happen, but usually they'll come and visit your high school or they'll do college fairs in your area or whatever you want to try to visit with them. As many points of contact as you can make, I think, is good. Show your essay draft to a teacher or a counselor, get some feedback on your essay draft. Kick butt in school. This is really, really important. Don't let any of this applying to college stuff sacrifice your ability to do well in school. It's the most important thing above all. As I said before, it's the first thing schools look at, and when you're applying your grades, you just got to do as well as you can. So November comes along, finish up all your application writing, right? By November, submit your applications by November 1st if you can. And then everything that doesn't have a November 1st deadline, submit all your applications by Thanksgiving or sooner. Just get it over with. You don't need to waste your December holiday break doing this college application stuff. Man, if you're done, then you can just kick back and you can enjoy it. And otherwise, you're going to spend your entire Christmas break stressed out, trying to apply by that final deadline, which is January 1st, is usually the final deadline for schools. Okay. So I am going to give you this tool here for you guys to work with. Okay, so this is something that I find is really, really helpful. So if you put, those priorities, right, that we talked about, put them right up here to kind of guide your search. And then right here, you can put the name of the school, the major you're interested in, what's their average GPA, SAT score, whatever kind of pertinent information you want. I think it's helpful also here to add a rating, a school that you're looking at, rating of 1 to 10. And then if you need to slice it down, rank order them by your rating. And, all of the 10s, 8s, and 7s make it, and maybe the 6, 5s, 4s don't make it, right? Maybe you want to keep track of the number of supplemental essays so that you can keep track of the workload. But this is also really important here. Elements that show it's a good fit for you, which is to say, does it align with your priorities? Which ones, right? These are the things that you really want to know. And then what are some specific things that you love about it? This is what's going to come in handy when it comes time to write the supplemental essays, okay? But you want to keep track of everything in one place as best you can. It's going to help you stay organized, okay? Moving along. Okay, artful bragging. You've got to hype yourself here. Simply submitting an application is the most basic thing you can do, okay? You have to compete. Your application is just part of the process. It's not the entire thing. You have to be your own agent here, your own hype man and hype woman, okay? And you really, what you want to do ultimately for admissions counselors is you want to make it hard for them to say no. This is why you do an interview. For instance, because it's a lot harder to say no to a person that they've met than it is to an application that doesn't have a face or a soul or a character to it, right? So you want to make it hard for them to say no. Be as interested in them as you want them to be in you, right? So there are a lot of different ways to do this. I'm going to go over it in a second. You can make some slightly reachier schools less reachy through self-advocacy. If you're just submitted an application and that's it, they're just not going to be as interested in you as somebody that's been in touch with them, that they know, they feel like they've got a relationship with. They're looking for students that want to come to their school, okay? So here are some things that you can do, okay? Introduce yourself to your admissions counselor and stay in touch. Really easy to find these people. You can Google them. Michigan State University admissions counselors, and they're usually organized by territory. So there's going to be an admissions counselor for the state of Pennsylvania, but maybe they have it split up into East and West or whatever. But if you can't figure out who it is, call the admissions office. Every admissions office has an admissions counselor assigned to your high school specifically, okay? Do an admissions interview if offered. Brag about your activities in the activities section of the Common Application. So the activities list is not just a place to, just the facts, simple stuff, okay? Every college admissions counselor knows what Model United Nations is. What they don't know is why you do it, right? Why do you love MUN? What did you do there? What was your favorite country that you represented in Model United Nations? It's a lot that, you can't pack a lot into 150 characters, but you would be surprised. You want to elevate your activities as much as you can. Give them words with some energy and talk about them. You can also use the, again, everything you do counts, not just clubs. But then use the additional information section of the common application to explain something further. Maybe you want to talk about these programs that you guys are in. 150 characters isn't going to do it justice. So you can use the additional information section of the common application to be like, look, I just want to explain something further to you here. It's important to understand, however, that there are going to be some colleges that are going to ask you in their supplemental essays, expand on an extracurricular activity. So this is why it's a good idea to have your document with all of those things in place, because maybe you don't want to duplicate that. Okay, if you have no schools on your list that are going to ask you to expand on an extracurricular activity, then maybe it's a great place to do that. Okay, get recommenders who are excited to brag on your behalf. Right, there's no real secret sauce here when it comes to the who to get a recommendation from. You just want the teachers that you like the best and the teachers that like you the best. It's a bonus if they happen to be teachers that taught you in subjects that you want to cover in college, but not critical. Okay, so these are just a few ways, but there are more. But I can't tell you how important it is to introduce yourself to your admissions counselor and stay in touch. Get their email address, send them a note. Hi, I just had some questions about X, Y, and Z. Oh, I just did this really cool thing. I wanted to let you know. It's okay to keep this channel of communication open between yourself and the admissions counselor. Okay, I'm going to stop right there, and I've got about 10 minutes for some questions.
Okay, so there are some questions I've been holding back.
Great.
All right, so let's start from the top. Julian asked, from your experience, what are some qualities that you've seen in smaller, lower ranked schools that high ranking schools lack in a fashion? So this could go beyond education, he says.
Well, okay, so the first one that comes to mind is that these are not pretentious places. They don't take themselves as seriously as some of these other famous schools do, and as seriously as some of the students there take themselves. Right? They go to this place because maybe they don't want to go to a place like that. Dr. Boone and some others on the line here will attest to the fact that when you finally get your PhD and you go on the job market to become a professor at a college or a university, you don't often get a lot of choice about where you get to go and do that work, including if you got your PhD from a very highly ranked famous place. There's somebody, one of my favorite people is last name I'm forgetting, but she got her PhD from someplace fantastic like University of Pennsylvania, and then she and her husband decided, well, they just have always wanted to live in the mountains. And so she now works and has worked for several decades at Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. None of you have heard about Weber State University unless you're a Damian Lillard fan like I am, okay? And then you've heard about it. But otherwise, these smaller places can just have people who are there because they're genuinely interested in the kind of environment, the kinds of students that are there. But that's one thing that comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind is just that you're going to have a really considerably more interesting range of kinds of students there. If you go to a less selective school, you're just going to have a whole variety of more different kinds of people there than you are if you go to a very, very highly selective school that only takes, rich white people that have only done everything they possibly can do to get straight A's and perfect SAT scores. Really boring, in my opinion. So I think that you're just going to have if you're interested in learning about the way that the world works, going to a very homogenous environment is not necessarily going to help you in that regard. You want to go to a diverse place, like an Arizona State University, where instead of having, 10 Native American students, they've got, 1,000 Native American students, right? Something like that.
Excellent. So I will ask the next one. So this is very technical. From Jonathan, is an application with a 35 or 36 ACT much stronger in the eyes of admission people than with a 34? Is it worth the time and effort to try to retake if you have a 34?
It's this really difficult cognitive sort of thing with an ACT, right? That it's like, oh, 1 point, one more point, but you still have to get a lot of questions right, a lot more questions right to get that one more point. So it's very tantalizing to try to do that. What the data says is that on average, diminishing returns kicks in after 3 sittings for an exam. So if you've only taken it once and you got a 34 and you want to try for a 35 or a 36, you probably got another couple of opportunities that are really good to give it a shot. That's for any score, by the way. But the margin for error is slimmer and slimmer the closer you get to that desired perfect score. But if you've already taken it 3 times and you just keep hitting that 34, like that's the point of the exam. It's engineered to kind of stop you at a certain point. It's not meant to be an exam that the more times you take it, the closer you get to mastering it. It's just that maybe the exam structure will look a little different, and you know that many more questions than you did on the previous one. The other thing is the concept of super scoring, right? That colleges will take a couple of different sittings of an exam and then give you the highest combined total between different tests, because they still get to report out that very high combined total to improve their standing in the US News and World Report rankings, right? So your super score is still valuable too.
Excellent. So there are some questions about AP classes.
Okay.
So I'll try to combine them.
Yeah, the scores all just came out this week.
Yeah, so it's probably fresh in a lot of their minds.
Yeah.
So how do colleges approach unweighted AP and honors classes on a transcript as opposed to similar? And how important are they to admissions? So they know they're for college credit, but a lot of people seem to hype them up to a point of equating AP program with ACT, SAT.
So AP is basically, the idea is that college admissions offices subscribe to the idea that an AP course is at least as difficult as a first year course at their school, right? So if you do well in an advanced placement course or another kind of college prep level course, what it does is it reduces their anxiety about whether you're going to be successful when you get there, right? That said, the options are not all equally available to all students, right? Not all schools offer every AP course. Not all schools offer more than 2 AP courses. The important thing is that you are engaging in the most realistic challenge possible within the context of your learning environment, and that you are meeting those challenges with good grades. That is the most important thing that you can do. But if your school offers, so I think the sort of mental health recommendation out there is, that if your school offers a ton of APs, you shouldn't necessarily take all of those APs under the sun, okay? Take, maybe 3 in your junior year and maybe 3 in your senior year max if you can get away with it. Unless, of course, it's just a breeze to you, in which case go for it. You shouldn't necessarily take AP calculus if you want to major in French, okay? You want to challenge yourself in the courses that most strongly relate to the work that you want to do in college, ideally. Okay, if you know you want to be a doctor and you know you want to be pre-med, you should probably take AP Bio and AP Chem, right? Unless, of course, if it's not available to you, or it just looks like a miserable course and you just don't want to take it, in which case maybe you're not, maybe pre-med's not for you. But it's really your call. The point, though, is like it's better to challenge yourself, I think, and get a B than it is to not challenge yourself and get an A. I think it's better to challenge yourself and get a B than it is to challenge yourself and get a C, right? So again, realistic challenges are important.
So along the lines of what happens if you did bad, Gianna asked, if you didn't do too well in a class in high school that you'll need to take in college, will that be a factor that can get your application rejected?
So it depends. Like, for instance, these AP scores just came out. By the way, you are under no obligation to share the results of these scores with the college admissions office. There's nothing that says you have to do that. They might say, well, the student took all these AP classes, why aren't they sharing their scores? Maybe they didn't do so well, but hey, better they guess, right? Than to just kind of confirm it, I think. Which, by the way, a 4 and a 5, some cases a 3 are the scores that you want, right, for college credit. But if it does really depend on the class. Now, a B is a perfect grade. A's and B's are great. A's and B's are great. C's, you start to, D's are not good, and you know the rest, okay? C, you want to try to avoid C's. It's, again, not the end of the world. It just may depend on, it may mean that, certain schools, depending on the grade, depending on the class, and depending on how many C's you might have on your transcript, it might mean that this school over here is a better fit for you than that school. But for instance, let's say you challenged yourself and you took calculus in 11th grade and that proved to be an unrealistic challenge and you got a C or something like that. Most students end up taking calculus that needed in college to take it over again, even if they got an A in AP, B, C, you know what I mean? So it really depends on the class, but you want to basically demonstrate that you're actively pursuing your interests in the classroom and that you're meeting those challenges and getting good grades. The question is like so many, the answer to all of these is it depends. Yeah. Sorry, I can't be more specific. I'd be happy to, if you want, you got my email address. So if you want to, send me your specific case, I'd be happy to answer.
That's excellent, Davin. Thanks for being so generous. And to be respectful of your time, I know you said you need to sign off at 3:15. It's 3:14.
That's okay.
Thank you so much.
I can take one more question if there's one more.
Yeah, there are some more. I was going to ask if you mind if I emailed them to you. But
we can pick one more from here and then email them to me, and I'll respond.
Okay. Let's see.
I could also just do like a office hours or something down the road too.
Yeah, so you can definitely, we have a Discord that our students are using to do this type of thing. So if you have a Discord handle, we can get you into our classroom too.
Man, I don't even know what that is.
I didn't either. This is all brand new to me. All right, so we'll ask one more question. I'll just go with the, let's see, I'll go with Amanda because I don't think we've asked one from her yet. She asked, is it a bad idea to submit to a selective school a Math 2 subject test that's anything less than an 800?
If it's Caltech, yes, but not necessarily. I mean, so it's a sophisticated question. So there are a couple different ways to look at test scores. One is just the raw score, right? Obviously, it's on a range of, you signed your name and walked away to 800, right? But students all score differently on those kinds of tests, right? Different sorts of students choose to take those tests. Like not every student chooses to take the Math 2 subject test. The students that do typically are going for some sort of STEM heavy, course of study in college. They tend to demonstrate already a facility with math. They're pretty good at math, right? So they're going to take the Math 2 subject test. So it's a self-selecting group of people that are already pretty good at math that are taking this test. As a result, in order to be in a high percentile of scorers, right? Like if you want to be in the 90+ percentile of scorers, then you have to get a higher score, right? In order for it to be sort of truly impressive. But there are ways to break that down further too. There are sub-scores, right? There's your overall percentile score, but then there's, percentile for, rank for African-American males or Latina females and all of that stuff. And so you don't know the extent to which the school is necessarily going to be equipped to take all that stuff into account. But, it sort of sounds stupid, but it's like, get the highest score you can. And if you're proud of your score, send it. I'm talking about self-advocacy. Like this is all about you. Like you need to be happy and proud of the person that you're presenting to them. you don't get to present 100% of you to them. You have to sort of stay confined in this little shoebox of the common application, right? Which is why I'm telling you to color outside the lines a little bit. You know, don't be confined just to the common application. You know, reach out to them, you know, put a bug in their ear, make sure they know who they are, make sure that they can't say no to your face, right? But if you say, you know what, I studied my ass off for that Math 2 test and I got a 720 and I can't believe it. Great. Or you got a 650 or whatever, right? It's, if you're proud, the fact of the matter is you can't necessarily know what is going to impress them. Right? So you can't try to impress them with anything because you don't know what among your qualities is going to be the thing that does it. So all you have to do is you got to put your best foot forward, you know, cross your fingers, you know, whatever you got to do, and hopefully it works out. And if not, their loss, right? I mean, that's got to be the attitude. That's got to be the attitude. So let's do a couple of things. I'll talk to Dr. Boone. We'll find a time to do one of these specifically about essay writing. And then I'll learn about whatever a Discord is and do that.
That's awesome, Davin. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I'll have Solomon send you some information on Discord. I'll send you these additional questions. A couple of them are about essays, though. So if we can get you back, that would be fantastic.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
So thank you so
guys.
much.
We'll talk again soon. And please reach out. You got my email address. All right.
Great.
Cheers.
Thank you. For the Hillman Academy students, our next activity, we're going to take a 6-minute break, 3:25. The link to the Zoom is in the chat in addition to in Solomon's general email. So go take 5 or 6 minutes before we come back. But we are going to close this meeting and come back into a new one. All right. So I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Davin.